Hello and welcome back to another One Piece video. So today I have blue Doflamingo for you guys, and honestly he is not that great of a deck right now just because blue purple Luffy obviously is still one of the top decks, and even with Jinbei, Doflamingo had a really tough time going into that matchup, and now without Jinbei we're pretty much cooked in that matchup. But I think Doflamingo's really good into decks that are used to counter blue-purple Luffy. So if we take a look at stuff like Zoro, take like Bellow Betty, and then even against like Teach, Doflamingo has a really good time against those type of decks. And so I think he has a spot in the meta, probably as a rogue pick, depending on what your locals looks like. But yeah, definitely not one of the top tier decks, just because in the top end department he is a bit lackluster. So in this format, it really, the top end is the name of the game, and being able to ramp up and then just dropping bombs after bombs, Doflamingo can't really compete with that, just because his game plan is to try to control the board while developing like 5,000-6,000 power bodies. And so getting into the deck list here, if you haven't noticed, I'm not playing the one cost buggy anymore, just because I wanted to replace him with this 4 cost Trafalgar Law, so that if we're playing Teach, which is our priority now, to be able to get this Teach on the board so that we can consistently leader ability every turn, this Law will help us combo with the Teach and just go net 0. Whereas I found there are games where we had the buggy and we had like Sengoku, for example, but the buggy only being able to dig 3 and can't even put it at the bottom of the deck, just felt really bad, because you would play buggy, you would essentially waste 1 Dawn to do nothing because you don't really have any hits for your leader. And then from there it just felt really bad because now you're just low on resources. And so next card is the Pudding. I decided to keep in Pudding here at 2. Might bump her up to 3 as well, just because she's really like the only way for this deck to punish your opponent for having a lot of cards in hand. Obviously you can play like the 4 cost Law here, but the Pudding being able to just reset your opponent's hand to 5 feels really good, especially if you can play down Pudding and then use your Teach ability. It's almost guaranteed that you get another life after that reset. And then I included only 2 Jozus now, just because a lot of decks can dodge Jozu. Like if you're looking at PB Luffy or like Great Luffy, thanks to their stage and leader ability, they're able to dodge the Jozu range. And so I feel like he was a little lackluster in that department. And so I replaced the missing Jozus just all with Red Rocks, because this deck really struggles with those top end bodies like I mentioned before. And having 4 Red Rocks just guarantees that we'll at least see 1, hopefully anyways. If we don't, we're pretty much cooked. And then for our top end department, I included the Rush Luffy here, just because it will help us just develop some big body on board that the opponent has to answer. And so yeah, that's pretty much it for the list. Let's just hop over to some gameplay and I'll show you guys how this thing runs. Okay, so first match I got for you guys, we're going to be going up against Red Green Smoker. And RG Smoker is one of those decks where people are playing it because it's really, really good into the meta. And this is one of the decks that Doflamingo can compete with. So obviously when you're going up against RG Smoker, you want to take away his first, just because he's really, really strong if he's able to drop that Smoker on curve. And so yeah, I just do a simple Teach play here, being able to play down the Weevil and then draw a card off of that. And so he swings in 5 at lead. We're going to take that every time, and we should be able to combo off with the Law here, and then playing down the Weevil and then developing another 6k body for him to deal with. And I wanted to swing in 7 there. Yeah, just making sure that we could try to eat a life out of his hand, but eat a life, but obviously if he gives us counter out of his hand, that's totally fine as well. and then just swinging in with the Weevil just because we already have a sideways Weevil. And so it doesn't really matter if I try to save him or not. And so just starting off with a 5k swing and a 6k swing, I'm probably just going to be playing the Jozu here. This is one of the matchups that Jozu is still relevant. And we're able to bounce our Weevil and then just play it back with the Teach ability so that we go net neutral there. And then for this kid, if he plays down the TCG, I'm probably just going to load up the Jozu, right? Just because he doesn't have many cards in hand. And then forcing him, if he wants to protect this kid, he's going to have to give us every card in his hand. And then if he doesn't protect the kid, then we're just going to start pounding his life in. So yeah, I didn't want to get punished here by not swinging enough. But yeah, he actually just ripped apart his entire hand to defend this kid. But yeah, just looking at his remaining cards, looks like if he didn't do that, he would have died next turn anyways, because he really didn't have much other cards to work with besides this Smoker, right? Which is not going to get him any value this turn. And so swings in 11 at our Jozu here. We only have one 2k, but that's totally fine just because we have so many cards in hand that we should be able to finish him off here. And so he only has 2 Dawn up, which means that he could have that event that pumps his leader up 5,000, right? Because it pumps him up 3 and then gives a character on our board -2. And so I just swing 5k over the kid here. And then I debated just playing down the Boa just in case he's able to counter out of this 9k swing. Oh, and I did actually. So playing down the Boa, I think my reasoning was if he can counter out of a 9k swing, he can counter out of a 8k swing, right? Or vice versa. But we only had 9k in range anyways, and so I just played down the Boa, forced him to use the event if he had it, but he didn't have it, so we were able to take the win there. Okay, so next game I got for you guys, we're going to be going up against PB Luffy. And even though PB Luffy is not the top deck this format, he is floating around one of the better decks in this format. And so yeah, really important that we were able to take away his first here, and then just starting off with Ace and Goku. And then yeah, luckily for us, we were able to find that Teach. And so this Boa Hancock, we can actually use her this following turn here. Yeah, and typically whenever I can, especially against the matchups where your opponent really just wants to ramp up in the early stages of the game, I want to develop as many 6k bodies as possible. And just because it's really important to put that pressure on him, but also if he swings into our Boa, we're essentially making our leader a 6k leader, and so it helps us with defense as well. And so he plays down the Zoro here, being able to ramp up one, and then probably swinging in 8 into this Boa here. Okay, he actually rips the Gum Gum Lightning here, and then giving us a 6k swing into the Boa, which we're just going to counter here. And I think at this point, I could either Boa and swing in 6-6 or 6-7, or I could play down the Moria and grab the Teach for future turns. Yeah, and I go ahead and do that just because now I can swing in 6. I think I decide not to swing in with the Boa here, right? Just because I kind of want to, yeah, because we're going into our 5 Dawn turn, and so yeah, it's really important for us to be able to clear out his board before that Beer Luffy comes down. But luckily for us, because he used the Gum Gum Lightning last turn, he isn't able to play down the Luffy just yet. And so swinging in 6 at lead, just going to be taking that one. And then yeah, thanks to us picking up the Teach last turn, we're going to be able to use this leader ability to develop another 6k body here. Yeah, while at the same time pressuring 2 7k swings thanks to the Boa's ability. Probably attaching it to the other Boa. Swinging at 7 and then another 7. And at this point, he either needs Beer Luffy or he busts. And he does have a Beer Luffy, and so he should be pretty tanky here. And he swings in a 5 at the Moria. And obviously, I'm just going to defend that just because it's really important for us to try to defend board as much as possible. And the reason why I didn't defend out of the swing there is because I know I'm going to leader ability this turn, and so I didn't want to like overlay anything, so there's really no reason for us to counter out of that one. And so I swing in a 9 at lead here. Looking at his hand, he actually couldn't counter. He would have been forced to use the Gum here if he wanted to protect himself, but then at that point he would be going down just way too much Dawn. Yeah, going down to 0 would have been really scary because next turn we would have just been loading up 15 to 16k swings. And so yeah, able to get a win off of PB Luffy as well. Okay, so last game I got for you guys, we're gonna be going up against Bellow Betty. And honestly, Bellow Betty is one of the decks that, because Blue Purple Luffy is so good, and Grape Luffy is so good, and she just naturally counters them, she has a very, very strong spot in this meta. And so yeah, being able to go up against her is super nice, because if you go to like any events that people are bringing her to try to counter the meta, then you yourself will be able to handle like those threats from the tournament. So yeah, just playing down the Weevil here. Obviously we knew he was there thanks to the Perona, but in this matchup it would have been super nice to see like a Law or something so that we can bounce his bodies, but totally fine. We're just going to be working with what we have. So he swings in 5 at lead here. I think, yeah, I actually decided to counter there just because I have the Rush Luffy in hand, and so as long as we're super healthy, we should be able to, yeah, we should be able to pressure him out of this game here, just because when Bellow Betty plays stage as well, they're already at a -1. And then we have a Searcher to deal with his Bellow Betty here, so that feels super nice. Yep. And then swinging in here, probably just playing Weevil into Sengoku here. And then probably grabbing that Gecko, just because now if we countered out of his swings, we're going to be able to pick it back up with the Gecko Moria here. And so I actually decided not to swing in with the Weevil, just because I didn't want to give him a way to come back into this game. And yeah, if he hit like a lucky trigger or something, that would have been really, really bad for us. So he keeps on the onslaught here. This is really scary, I'm not gonna lie, just because he was able to develop 3 bodies this turn and still be able to take life from us. And that's why I countered out early on, just because if you can counter out of Bellow Betty swings with just 1 card, you should just do it, guys. It's not a big deal, especially as a 5 life leader. You're gonna be able to get all that back. And so here I think I'm able to swing in like 7, 8, 8 if I'm not mistaken. And then yeah, this Gecko Moria able to grab us. Probably gonna be grabbing the Perona here, just so we have utility to be able to stack our deck again. And then here probably swinging in a 7 and a 9, or actually swinging 7, 8 and then stacking Perona. I kind of like 7, 9 here. Yeah, just because we have the Rush Luffy as well. Yeah, I like that play. So Like, we totally could have played down the Perona there, but we know that next turn we'll be able to play the Rush Luffy. And so I think I was just setting up for that. And then trying to, yeah, set up for lethal if he turns that blocker sideways. And so here, he decreases our leader, and so I thought he was going to be trying to pressure life here, but he actually swings into our Weevil, which we will take full advantage of. Just trying to counter out of these swings as many as possible, and then able to save this Weevil here, super big. And so at this point, I'm forcing him to either, turn his blocker sideways, or we're just gonna have another swing to work with. And so at this point, I think I swing in a 7, just because this will either eat his blocker or 2 cards in hand. And then from there, we should have the math to close it out. I was thinking about playing the Luffy here, but honestly, it's just unnecessary because we have the math for 9/9, and he only has 2 cards in hand, so there's no reason, or there's no way for him to counter out of that one. So yeah, we were able to get a win off of Bellow Betty as well. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the video. I think Blue Doflamingo obviously is not as strong as he once was, just because Jinbei was removed, and also the power creeping of the new leaders that have been coming out. But he is able to compete with some of the decks that are out there to try to counter the meta. So yeah, he is a very fun rogue pick. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.